Nuclear weapons, the weapons of mass destruction that we saw the extent of its destruction in the American and Japanese wars. Today I will introduce you to more nuclear weapons tests that you may not know. Trinity, the dawn of the atomic age. Please join military knowledge as we delve into the world's first nuclear weapon test. Trinity, which marked the beginning of the atomic age. This was the result of the Manhattan Project, a U.S. government research program aimed at developing nuclear weapons during World War II. The atomic bomb detonated during the Trinity test was called the Gadget. The test site chosen was a desert in the U.S. state of New Mexico. On July 16, 1945, this bomb was detonated, unleashing a destructive power equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. A blinding flash appeared, followed by a thunderous explosion that made witnesses believe they were experiencing a violent earthquake. The test created a massive mushroom cloud reaching a height of 12 kilometers. The shockwave could be measured 160 kilometers away from the test site. Even nearly 300 kilometers away, house windows shattered, or echoes of the sound could be heard. The results were immensely satisfying, as Washington had now become the first nation to possess this miraculous weapon. Less than a month after this success, the U.S. dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing hundreds of thousands of people. Operation Crossroads Able and Baker. After World War II ended, Washington realized that the isolated location of Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean would be an ideal nuclear test site. Just 1 year later, they embarked on testing 2 nuclear bombs, Able and Baker, as part of Operation Crossroads. On July 1, 1946, the Able bomb was detonated in the air. Any ships still afloat within a 914-meter radius were severely damaged. Of 57 guinea pigs, 109 ordinary mice, 146 pigs, 176 goats, and 3,030 white rats placed on 22 simulated target ships, only 30% survived. However, Able's destructive power was still not comparable to the Baker bomb, which was detonated underwater on July 25th. It propelled over 1 million cubic meters of heavily radioactive seawater and sand into the air, creating a water column 1.8 kilometers high, 609 meters wide, and 91 meters thick, with tsunami waves over 30 meters high submerging many target ships. The radioactive cloud from the explosion lingered for days before dissipating in the sky. The Baker explosion was dubbed the world's first nuclear disaster due to the radiation contamination it caused local residents upon their return. Castle Bravo, a new generation of thermonuclear bombs. As a result, the Americans had to wait 8 years until 1954 to continue nuclear tests on Bikini Atoll. This time, they brought a new generation of thermonuclear bombs called Castle Bravo. The explosion occurred on March 1, 1954. Within just 1 second of detonation, it created a fireball nearly 7.2 kilometers wide. Even if you were strolling over 400 kilometers away, you could still see this fireball. The mushroom cloud reached a height of 14 kilometers and a diameter of 11 kilometers in about a minute, then 40 kilometers high and 100 kilometers in diameter in less than 10 minutes, expanding its radius at a speed of over 100 meters per second. The consequences of this explosion were truly horrific, as this cauliflower cloud contaminated over 18,000 square kilometers of the Pacific Ocean. This bomb was 1,000 times more powerful than the 2 bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. To this day, it remains the most powerful bomb ever tested by the U.S. military. Ivy Mike, the first thermonuclear bomb. However, Castle Bravo was not Washington's first thermonuclear bomb test. Ivy Mike was the world's first thermonuclear bomb tested by the Americans. Ivy Mike was 6 meters high and 2 meters wide, covered by a 300 millimeters thick steel casing, and weighed 56 tons. To prevent the main ingredient, liquid deuterium, from evaporating, 18 tons of coolant were used. Its total mass was 74 tons. Looking at it, you can see its truly enormous size, so no one could carry it on an airplane. This bomb was assembled at a test base on Ulujlab Island in the Inutak Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. On November 1st, 1952, at 7:15 a.m. local time, the bomb was detonated. The fireball had a radius of 2.9 to 3.3 kilometers. The mushroom cloud reached a height of 17 kilometers, with the base of the cloud having a diameter of 41 kilometers, and the widest part of the cloud cap reaching 161 kilometers in diameter. Surprisingly, Ivy Mike created a crater 1.9 kilometers in diameter and 50 meters deep, completely obliterating Ulujlab Island. Tsar Bomba, the world's largest nuclear test. That was in the US. What about their rival in this nuclear arms race, the Soviet Union? They created the world's largest nuclear bomb test, named Tsar Bomba, on October 30th, 1961. Tsar Bomba, also known as the Tsar Bomb, was dropped from an altitude of approximately 10,500 meters from a specially white reflective painted Tu-95V bomber and detonated at an altitude of 4,000 meters. It created a fireball visible from a distance of 1,000 kilometers in cloudy weather conditions, accompanied by a blinding flash. Just seconds after detonation, a column of dust and smoke billowed up, nearly 10 kilometers high. The enormous fireball then slowly rolled up, reaching a diameter of nearly 20 kilometers. 40 seconds later, the fireball reached an altitude of 30.5 kilometers before the mushroom cloud began to form and rose to a height of 64 kilometers and a diameter of 90 kilometers. The explosion left a devastating impact. Tens of kilometers from the epicenter, the ground became dry and hot. Most of the ice and snow in the area melted, and structures built before the explosion in the area were pulverized. It is estimated that the Tsar Bomba released energy equivalent to 50 million tons of TNT, or 3,800 times the power of the bomb the US dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. Tsar Bomba is currently the largest nuclear bomb ever tested by humans to date. Operation Desert Rock, training in a nuclear battlefield. Next is Operation Desert Rock. From 1951 to 1957, the U.S. military conducted a series of exercises called Desert Rock, aimed at training soldiers and enhancing their understanding of military operations in a nuclear battlefield. The training included tactical flights and tests to determine the destructive power of nuclear weapons. U.S. soldiers would witness tests at close range. Officers wanted to know how soldiers would react to extremely large explosions on the battlefield. They had to hide in trenches a few kilometers away from the explosion site. This horrifying image sends shivers down my spine, because this is the first time I've seen a training exercise where soldiers had to face everything from the terrifying sound of the explosion, shockwaves, optical radiation, penetrating radiation, to battlefield smoke and dust. And of course, the effects of fallout on the body like this. Wahoo, an underwater nuclear test. And finally, a video capturing the terrifying scene of the Wahoo nuclear test. The Wahoo test took place on May 16, 1958. The test site was a wide sea area near the Enutak Atoll in the Marshall Islands. The bomb was detonated at a depth of 150 meters in a sea nearly 1,000 meters deep. According to military knowledge, the Mark 7 nuclear bomb had a yield of 9 kilotons, 2/3 the yield of the Little Boy atomic bomb, but was much more compact. Within 1 second of the explosion, a wall of water was created, which quickly reached a height of 260 meters after 7 seconds. It had a dome-like conical shape with sides sloping at 45 degrees. After the second explosion, other water plumes were created, penetrating the original water wall and spreading in all directions. This wall of water moved for 20 seconds, quickly reaching a height of nearly 800 meters before collapsing.